So Diego bought some raisins and walnuts to make trail mix. Raisins cost $4 a pound and walnuts cost $8 a pound. Diego spent $15 on both ingredients. First thing you need to do is write an equation to represent this constraint or really just situation in general. Use X for pounds of raisins, Y for pounds of walnuts. Remember, equations should have equal signs. Identify any totals first, then think of what contributes to that total and put it on there. Once you make an equation, you are going to graph it with graphing technology, like Desmos, graph it, see if you observe anything. And then complete the table based on what is there and what's not. So you could plug into the equation you made and solve algebraically. You could try to find the answers from the graph. But either way, the first step is making the equation. And that's how it'll be on your constructed response test too. So try it out. Don't just be there with a blank paper and then in 5 minutes when I call you for the equation, have nothing to say. You know exactly what I'm gonna ask you. So I'll give you about 4 minutes and we'll review this. All right, class, is this a solid equation? Does it represent our situation? Does it use the right variables? Yes. So earlier someone said the same thing, but they did R and W, like R for raisins, W for walnuts, which is fine if I'm not typing it into the computer for the test. Know that like if you were taking your state test, for example, and you don't follow those instructions to use certain variables, they might mark it wrong. I know that when that happens in here, I'm usually going back and checking anyway, but just read it closely. If they want me to use X for raisins, use X. If they want you to use Y for walnuts, use that. But yeah, find your total, put it alone on one side. That's how much Diego has to spend. And think about what's contributing to what he's spending. So $4 per pound, $8 per pound, and we don't know like how many exactly he's buying. All right, so good. You will have to do that on your constructed response. But the next thing it asked us to do was use graphing technology to graph it. So you should hopefully have Desmos up, or if you know how to use your handheld graphing calculator, maybe you graphed it on there. Now, unfortunately, you don't get Desmos on your state testing, but you do get it for all your unit tests. And it's really user-friendly. I don't even have to put it in slope-intercept form for it to graph the line for me. I can leave it in the form that it's in. Okay. So here it is. Notice that if I did the 4R plus 8W equals 15, notice that it gives me an error and that it doesn't graph the line. Okay, and if you hover over this, it tells you we only support implicit equations of X and Y. So that's probably why they wanted you to use those variables so that when you graph it, it shows up. And also so that you can read your graph. So if we're saying that X is for pounds of raisins, I'm going to put the raisins here on my X-axis. And if Y is for pounds of walnuts, then I'll put that here. Notice that I'm ignoring all the quadrants that would have negative values. Because can I have negative pounds of either? No, so I'm really only focusing on this quadrant. But you could have filled the table out using your graph, or you could just plug it into the equation. So that's what I'm going to ask you next. Table 3, when there are 0 pounds of raisins, how many pounds of walnuts are there? 3.75. Okay, we'll see if that's right after we fill the whole table. Table 4, when there's 0.25 pounds of raisins, how many pounds of walnuts? Okay, while you guys, so you guys are in charge of that one. While you guys figure that out, maybe let's take a moment and see if the first one's right. So you had two options. You could plug it in because we're saying they bought 0 pounds of raisins. So what would I plug in and where, class? The X would be 0 if I bought 0 pounds of raisins, right? And then I can solve for how many pounds of walnuts. So class, what's 4 times 0? 0. Sorry, this is lagging tremendously. I hate when it does that. Hold on. Not sure what's going on. But yes, 4 times 0 is 0. All right. What is 0 plus 8y? 8y, good. And then we want to isolate the y. So how would I do that? What's the opposite of multiplying by 8? Dividing. Sorry guys, having a lot of issues, so hang on. Okay, yes. So dividing by 8. All right, and then 15 divided by 8 will give me y. So do that in your calculator. What is 15 divided by 8? 1.875. So we'll have to adjust this answer. I'm sorry, I'm going to use the type feature because it's bugging me right now. But yes, questions on that? So maybe that makes it a bit easier. It should be 1.875 for that one. Notice what happens if I tried to find it on my graph. So look where there would be 0 raisins. Come on, please work. Please work. It's not working. Okay. Raisins is the X, right? So I'd have to find where the X is 0 and see what that Y value is at the same time. Isn't that the same Y value we got from solving it algebraically? You guys all looking at the screen? Okay. So do it algebraically, do it by using your graph, either one, as long as you get the right answer without, like, I don't know, cheating. Using your graph is not cheating. So then table 4, when there's 0.25 pounds of raisins, how many pounds of walnuts are there? All right, we'll see if that's right in a second. Table 5, when there is 1.375 pounds of walnuts, how many pounds of raisins? 1. Table 6, when there's 1.25 pounds of walnuts, how many pounds of raisins? So either do the math or use the graph. We'll come back to you, table 6. You have that row. Table 7, when there's 1.75 pounds of raisins, how many pounds of walnuts? And table 8, when there's 3 pounds of raisins, how many pounds of walnuts? All right, table 6, do we have an answer on the one that we were missing? Okay, I'm going to see which are correct and which one that we need to see. So we know that one's right because we did that one. Let me check my key. So this one's right. These two are also right. And this one's right. Did I hear you right earlier? Whoever had this one, was it 0.75?
because I have something different. So let's investigate that one. If you were using the equation, what would you be plugging in and where for that one? So if you're doing this one algebraically, plug in a 3 for the x. So like 4 times 3 is 12. Sorry, I'm trying to illustrate this without using my little thing I usually write on. Subtract 12 on each side, you get 8y equals 3. Divide 8 on each side, you get this as an answer instead, 0.375. But on my graph, if I'm using it to solve, I'd have to find where the raisins, where the x is 3. And on Desmos, you can like click on the line and drag until you find it. And you see that y value when x is 3. Same thing we got algebraically. So it should be that instead, 0.375. Let's fix that. And now it's better. Questions on that? Okay, we're going to take a moment and go over the learning targets before we do the next part. Because if I was doing this lesson on, say, like a Tuesday, then I might not have done it at all. Because Monday's a short day, it's really hard to squeeze in a lesson, so that's why I kept it. So that way, no matter how far we get, like we're still reviewing important skills, but I don't think we'll be able to meet the goal because of time, which is solving systems by graphing. All right, it's still great, like if we can get to a certain part to like discover something, but if we don't today, don't worry, the rest of the week you will see it and practice it. I only hold you accountable on the notes for what we actually do in class. So if we only do a few parts of it, that's fine. You don't have to like go home and finish it. Because I only hold you to what we do in class. I record every day, so this little mini lesson, whether we finish it or not, will be linked right there. If you want the full lesson from last year, it's there, but not necessary. The rest of the week will be practicing solving systems, including by graphing. You still do have a practice. So remember, practices are only 10 homework points, and you know that homework alone is not a huge part of your grade anyway. So just one little practice won't affect you drastically, but they are your checkpoints. So you know that unit tests are super important. They tend to sneak up on you. If you look at the calendar on the right, your right, you can see the schedule for the next 2 weeks. So we are testing next week on Wednesday for our unit test. They sneak up on you fast. So if you've been slacking, if you've been not doing your homework because you know you have until the unit test to do it, well, the unit test will be here before you know it. All right, we have small quizzes here and there that are also small parts of your grade, but those unit tests you have to be ready for. So let me show you some of the review materials for our unit tests. I don't put them in any folder, so that way, like, they're not week specific. They're just right at the top where you can't miss it. Here. And I try to publish them. I mean, I already have them ready for the whole semester. I'm very well planned. But I try to publish them once I think you can actually start doing the problems on them. So there might be some that you don't know how to do yet, but otherwise, like, you can get ahead and start studying for your test, the one that's like 150 assessment points. That actually makes a difference. So if you remember the first study guides and the first test I gave you, like if you actually did the study guides, you know that they look just like the real tests. So do them, make sure you know them. First one's online and matches the online portion of your test. The second one's on paper and matches the paper portion of your test. I don't like to pass out this paper early, because honestly, if you're gonna like not do it, then I don't need to give it to you early. But if you want it early and I happen to have it, so it's still being printed and stuff,
If I happen to have it and you ask for it, I'll give it to you. Otherwise, I'll give it to you Monday next week, and we're checking it that next day for the binder check. I feel like some of you aren't paying attention, so really important now, this stuff. This is your extra credit. So lots of people message me, oh, how can I get my grade up? One, do better on the unit tests. And two, use these optional extra credit things to help you. So the first one is kind of like the last unit that we did. It was also available. That one will be different every time you take it. And it'll be 100 classwork points. This one is new, and it's something that we're gonna start offering for each unit moving forward now. We have IXL mostly to help us with our state testing next semester. But I understand that a lot of you use IXL before, and that's kind of like your safe space. You know that it'll teach you how to do the problems as you go. So I pulled some skills from this unit. And you don't have to do all of them, you don't have to do any of them. But for each one that you do and get a SMART score of 90 or higher, I'll give you a extra credit point in the project category. So that's different from the homework category. Homework's not worth a whole lot. And you usually have a lot of missing homework, so like the extra credit homework balances each other out. This is going in the project category. So if you lost points like on a binder check, this would make that up. If you had 100% on your binder check, so you have over 100% in the project category by doing this, it bleeds into your other categories. And I counted it, but I forgot how many there are. There's about 30. If you did all 30 of these, you could have 30 extra credit points in the project category. It'll be over 100% on that. And it will tremendously help your grade. Again, it's completely optional. You do one, you do all of them, but every time that you work on them and get a 90 SMART score or higher, take a screenshot, upload it to this assignment link, and then I'll give you that extra credit. And that'll be offered for every unit moving forward. Some of you I might talk to one-on-one and say, hey, you review these middle school skills, but this is still an incentive. Like, it'll still be extra credit. I don't want to hear like emails about, oh, Ms. Medina, what can I do for extra credit? Like, I just told you. And give you 2 extra credit things that you can do now. So there's questions? Okay, lots of information I just told you. It's at the top of your Schoology, you can't miss it. But let's get back to this activity. All right, so similar to what you already did, except we're changing one thing. Diego bought a total of 2 pounds of raisins and walnuts combined. So we're changing the constraint. You're gonna write an equation to represent this. Let X be pounds of raisins and Y be pounds of walnuts. Think about it for like, let's review that together because it's hard to do the rest if you don't know the right equation. So just think about that. If I need to write an equation to represent that he buys a total of 2 pounds of raisins and walnuts, what would it have to be? Right? What do equations have to have?
Equal sign.
Equal signs and identify a total. So in this new constraint, what's a total? Sorry, what was that? Okay, so we're gonna put that total alone on one side. And think about what contributes to that total. You could use numbers, variables, but it has to represent this situation. Anyone think they know what it should be? X plus Y. That's really it. And in this unit, when we do the real world problems,
One of them is usually simple like that. Here's my total pounds I need to buy. If we know that X is for pounds of raisins and Y is for pounds of walnuts, we just know that they need to add up to 2. Okay, so now with the correct equation, we just verified this is right. Use technology to graph it and complete the table. If I have 0 pounds of raisins, how many walnuts did I buy? And so on. Okay, so do that. We'll go over it in 2 minutes. You might have used a graph. You were supposed to graph it regardless. So let's show what that looks like. X plus Y equals 2. All right, so something like that. But honestly, like, use your critical thinking skills. If I bought 0 pounds of raisins, but I bought 2 pounds total, how many pounds of walnuts did I have to buy? 2. So plug it into the equation, use a graph, whatever you need to do. But if I buy 0 pounds of raisins, that means I bought 2 pounds of walnuts. All right, table 9, what about if I bought 0.25 pounds of raisins? How many pounds of walnuts did I buy?
When you come back, then you're enough.
Okay. Table 1, if I bought 1.375 pounds of walnuts, how many pounds of raisins? You guys are really killing me here. All right, problem solving isn't like a skill we all have, right? Like, maybe it takes us some time to figure it out. For example, if I have this many pounds of walnuts, what does this need to be plugged into? The X or the Y? The Y. Okay, and then what plus 1.375 equals 2? Use your inverse operations. What's opposite of adding 1.375? Do that on both sides. Sorry, my little pen isn't working, so I have to do it this way. Right, do that on both sides. What's 2 minus 1.375, table 1? 2 minus 1.375. Guys are really killing me. Table 9, how many pounds of walnuts did they buy? 1.75. Guess what? That adds up to 2, right? So either use a graph, use your critical thinking skills, use the equation, but that's really all the math that you're doing. Table 1, do we have it? Okay, good. Table 2, what about when they buy 1.25 pounds of walnuts? How many pounds of raisins? 0.75. Table 3, when they buy 1.75 pounds of raisins, how many pounds of walnuts? And table 4, if they bought 3 pounds of raisins, how many pounds of walnuts would have to make that true? -1, which obviously they can't buy -1 pounds, but it has to add up to 2, right? Now listen, only one of these values pairs works for both situations. So look over both tables. Which one of these is also matching on here? The second one, right? So this one here would meet both constraints. When it meets both constraints, that's what we would call a solution to a system, which will work more on the rest of the week. But that's just like the cool thing about this, is that only one set works for both constraints.